Welcome to Heavy D Storytelling. How are you doing today? We are going to be doing the Bible.
Keep talking, I forgot my water.
And then we are doing Ben-Hur. As you saw the title of the video, we're doing chapter... I don't remember, but still, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe and hit the bell. And there is actually a prize if you hit the bell. Do we know what that is? You get a notification when we get a new video up. So, yeah.
Okay. Ready?
Here's Heavy D.
Okay, and I've been more diligent about uploading the videos to YouTube, so please go to YouTube, watch my videos if you want to. If you don't want to, then it's whatever. Okay, so we're on Ruth chapter 4. We're going to have quietness. This is the end of Ruth. Well, it's not the end of Ruth, but it is the end of the book of Ruth. All right, so here we are, Ruth chapter 4, the English Standard Version of the Bible. Now Boaz had gone up to the gate and sat down there. And behold, the Redeemer of whom Boaz had spoken came by. So Boaz said, "Turn aside, friend, sit down here." And he turned aside and sat down. And he took 10 men of the elders of the city and said, "Sit down here." So they sat down. Then he said to the Redeemer, "Naomi, who has come back from the country of Moab, is selling the parcel of land that belonged to our relative Elimelech. So I thought I would tell you of it and say, buy it in the presence of those sitting here and in the presence of the elders of my people. If you will redeem it, redeem it. But if you will not, tell me that I may know, for there is no one besides you to redeem it, and I come after you." And he said, "I will redeem it." Then Boaz said, "The day you buy the field from the hand of Naomi, you also acquire Ruth the Moabite, the widow of the dead, in order to perpetuate the name of the dead in his inheritance." Then the Redeemer said, "I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I impair my own inheritance. Take my right of redemption yourself, for I cannot redeem it." Now this was the custom in former times in Israel concerning redeeming and exchanging. To confirm a transaction, the one drew off his sandal and gave it to the other, and this was the manner of attesting in Israel. So when the Redeemer said to Boaz, "Buy it for yourself," he drew off his sandal. Then Boaz said to the elders and all the people, "You are witnesses this day that I have bought from the hand of Naomi all that belonged to Elimelech and all that belonged to Chilion and to Mahlon. Also Ruth the Moabite, the widow of Mahlon, I have bought to be my wife." So there it actually says that she was married to Mahlon. Remember earlier in chapter 1, it just said that she was married to one of them. So that now we know which one it was. Ooh. Okay. Sorry. That was total random little ADD moment. So, squirrel. Okay. Also, Ruth the Moabite, the widow of Mahlon, I have bought to be my wife, to perpetuate the name of the dead in his inheritance, that the name of the dead may not be cut off from among his brothers and from the gate of his native place. You are witnesses this day. Then all the people who were at the gate and the elders said, "We are witnesses. May the Lord make the woman who is coming into your house like Rachel and Leah, who together built up the house of Israel. May you act worthily in Ephrathah, and be renowned in Bethlehem. And may your house be like the house of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah, because of the offspring that the Lord will give you by this young woman." So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife, and he went in to her, and the Lord gave her conception, and she bore a son. Then the women said to Naomi, "Blessed be the Lord, who has not left you this day without a redeemer, and may his name be renowned in Israel. He shall be to you a restorer of life and a nourisher of your old age. For your daughter-in-law, who loves you, is more to you than 7 sons has given birth to him. Then Naomi took the child and laid him on her lap and became his nurse. And the women of the neighborhood gave him a name, saying, a son has been born to Naomi. They named him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David. Now these are the generations of Perez. Perez fathered Hezron. Hezron fathered Ram. Ram fathered Amminadab. Amminadab fathered Nahshon. Nahshon fathered Salmon. Salmon fathered Boaz. Boaz fathered Obed. Obed fathered Jesse. And Jesse fathered David. And if you go in the genealogy of the book of, I believe it is Matthew, you will see that Ruth is singled out as one of the descendants of Jesus, or one of the opposite, not descendant. One of the ancestors of the opposite of descendant. So, all right. So, yeah, because we don't believe in all that Dan Brown stuff. So anyway, okay. At this time, I'm waiting for something to emerge.
We have the synopsis.
There you go, JJ, the synopsis. And here to deliver the synopsis is no other than Kimberly. Go, sit down.
Okay, so what happened in the last few chapters was, Simonides, that was his name, him and his daughter Esther, they came over to where Ben-Hur was, so, and they were...
Did they come over to where Ben-Hur was, or did Ben-Hur get escorted back to them?
I think he got escorted back, right?
I think that's how it was.
Sorry, too many details to keep track of
That's
that.
okay.
So, what happened after that was, after they caught up, and he's like, hey, I know you're Ben-Hur, and I know that you're telling the truth, and etc.
And Ben-Hur said, now listen here, slave.
No.
You'll do what I tell you.
He tried to free him, except by Hebrew law, since since he put himself in the position of being a slave in the first place, by Hebrew law, he has to be a slave for the rest of his life, and then his entire family has to be slaves.
Why did he do that? Why did he
because
become a slave in the first place?
The person that he loved was a slave, and she's
right.
like,
it was
I'm not
because of the devotion that he had to his wife, who is now dead, but Esther is her daughter.
Yeah.
Their daughter. Right?
Yeah, but she was like, so I'm not going to marry you unless you become a slave too.
So he did.
Yeah. And apparently Esther is now their slave as well.
Yeah,
Just
I
like,
guess so, technically.
It's, weird. And he kind of has this little crush on her, so definitely weird. And that was about it, right?
Yeah, sure. Alright, yeah, Ben-Hur is definitely crushing out on one of his slave girls. Actually the only one. Okay, so, here we go. Lovely intro. It's because I wasn't in it. Alright, so we are on... Oh, did we lose our place? Nope, here's the bookmark. Okay, we are on chapter 8. Ben-Hur, book 5, chapter 8. We are maybe about halfway through book 5. So, all right. Let me just get started and see how far we get. Simonides looked up, nonetheless, a master. Esther, he said quietly, the night is going fast, and lest we become too weary for that which is before us, let the refreshments be brought. She rang a bell. A servant answered with wine and bread, which she bore round. The understanding, good my master, continued Simonides, when all were served, is not perfect in my sight. Oh, there was something else that Kimberly didn't mention. Simonides had counted up all the money that he had earned off of Ben-Hur's fortune. The property had basically been dissolved, but Simonides was able to acquire Ben-Hur's wealth, so the money that he had, and it was like 120 talents or something like that. And in the process of the 5 or 10 or however long years it's been since Ben-Hur was arrested, Simonides turned that into like 600 and something talents. And so he said, here's your 600 talents. You're the wealthiest man in the world, basically. And so Ben-Hur said, no, you keep the money that you earned. I'll just take the 120 talents that you started with. And so that was the deal that he made. But unfortunately, Simonides is still his slave. And so if Ben-Hur owns all the property of all of his slaves, then technically he still has that money. But the point of it is that Ben-Hur is like a very... he's not really after the money. That's not the purpose in this thing. Anyway, I'm going to keep reading now. But that just came to me. That was in the last chapter also. The understanding, good my master, continued Simonides, when all were served, is not perfect in my sight. Henceforth our lives will run on together like rivers which have met and joined their waters. I think their flowing will be better if every cloud is blown from the sky above them. You left my door the other day with what seemed a denial of the claims which I have just allowed in the broadest terms. But it was not so. Indeed, it was not. Esther is witness that I recognized you, and that I did not abandon you. Let Malak say. Malak, exclaimed Ben-Hur. One bound to a chair like me must have many hands far-reaching if he would move the world from which he is so cruelly barred. I have many such, and Malak is one of the best of them. And sometimes, he cast a grateful glance at the sheik, sometimes I borrow from others good of heart, like Ilderim the generous, good and brave. Let him say if I either denied or forgot you. Ben-Hur looked at the Arab. This is he, good Ilderim. This is he who told you of me. Ilderim's eyes twinkled as he nodded his answer. How, O my master, said Simonides, may we without trial tell what a man is? I knew you. I saw your father in you, but the kind of man you were I did not know. There are people to whom fortune is a curse in disguise. Were you of them? I sent Malak to find out for me, and in the service he was my eyes and my ears. Do not blame him. He brought me report of you, which was all good. I do not, said Ben-Hur heartily. There was wisdom in your goodness. The words are very pleasant to me, said the merchant with feeling, very pleasant. My fear of misunderstanding is laid. Let the rivers run on now as God may give them direction. After an interval he continued, I am compelled now by truth. The weaver sits weaving, and as the shuttle flies, the cloth increases and the figures grow, and he dreams dreams meanwhile, so to my hands the fortunes grew. And I wondered at the increase and asked myself about it many times. I could not see a care, not my own, went with the enterprises I set going. The simoons which smote others on the desert jumped over the things which were mine. The storms which heaped the seashore with wrecks did but blow my ships the sooner into port. Strangest of all, I, so dependent upon others, fixed to a place like a dead thing, had never a loss by an agent, never. The elements stooped to serve me, and all my servants, in fact, were faithful. It is very strange, said Ben-Hur. So I said, and kept saying. Finally, O my master, finally I came to be of your opinion. God was in it, And, like you, I asked, what can his purpose be? Intelligence is never wasted. Intelligence, like God's, never stirs, except with design. I have held the question in heart, lo, these many years watching for an answer. I felt sure if God were in it... Hi, Granny Bear. Have to replay the intro. Yay! If God were in it someday, in his own good time, in his own good way, he would show me his purpose, making it clear as a whited house upon a hill. And I believe he has done so. Ben-Hur listened with every faculty intent. Many years ago with my people, thy mother was with me, Esther, beautiful as morning over old Olivet. I sat by the wayside out north of Jerusalem, near the tombs of the kings, when 3 men passed by, riding great white camels, such as had never been seen in the holy city. The men were strangers and from far countries. The first one stopped and asked me a question. Where is he that is born King of the Jews? As if to allay my wonder, he went on to say, we have seen his star in the east, and have come to worship him. I could not understand, but I followed them to the Damascus gate, and of every person they met on the way, of the guard at the gate even, they asked the same question. All who heard it were amazed like me. In time I forgot the circumstance, though there was much talk of it as a presage of the Messiah. Alas, alas, what children we are, even the wisest. When God walks on the earth, his steps are often centuries apart. You have seen Balthazar? And heard him tell his story, said Ben-Hur. A miracle, a very miracle, cried Simonides, and he told it to me, good master. I seemed to hear the answer I had so long waited. God's purpose burst upon me. Poor will the king be when he comes, poor and friendless, without following, without armies, without cities or castles, a kingdom to be set up, and Rome reduced and blotted out. See, see, O my master, thou flushed with strength, thou trained to arms, thou burdened with riches, behold the opportunity the Lord hath sent thee. Shall not his purpose be thine? Could a man be born to a more perfect glory? Simonides put his whole force in the appeal. But the kingdom, Ben-Hur answered eagerly. Balthazar says it is to be of souls. The pride of the Jew was strong in Simonides, and therefore the slightly contemptuous curl of the lip with which he began his reply. Balthazar has been a witness of wonderful things, of miracles, O my master, and when he speaks of them I bow with belief, for they are of sight and sound personal to him. But he is a son of Mizraim, and not even a proselyte. Hardly may he be supposed to have special knowledge, by virtue of which we must bow to him, in a manner of God's dealing with our Israel. The prophets had their light from heaven directly, even as he had his, many to one, and Jehovah the same forever. I must believe the prophets. Bring me the Torah, Esther. He proceeded without waiting for her. May the testimony of the whole people be slighted, my master, though you travel from Tyre, which is by the sea in the north, to the capital of Edom, which is in the desert south. You will not find a lisper of the Shema, an almsgiver in the temple, or anyone who has ever eaten of the lamb of the Passover to tell you the kingdom of the king is coming to build for us, the children of the covenant, in other than of this world, like our father David's. Now where they got the faith, ask you? We will see presently. Esther here returned, bringing a number of rolls, carefully enveloped in dark brown linen, lettered quaintly in gold. Keep them, daughter, to give to me as I call for them, the father said, in a tender voice he always used in speaking to her, and continued his argument. It were long, good my master, too long indeed for me to repeat to you the names of the holy men who, in the providence of God, succeeded the prophets, only a little less favored than they, the seers who have written, and the preachers who have taught since the captivity, the very wise who borrowed their lights from the lamp of Malachi, the last of his line, and whose great names Hillel and Shammai never tired of repeating in the colleges. Will you ask them of the kingdom? Thus the Lord of the sheep in the book of Enoch. Who is he? Who but the king of whom we are speaking? A throne is set up for him. He smites the earth, and the other kings are shaken from their thrones, and the scourges of Israel flung into a cavern of fire, flaming with pillars of fire. So also the singer of the Psalms of Solomon. Behold, O Lord, and raise up to Israel their king, the son of David, at the time thou knowest, O God, to rule Israel thy children, and he will bring the people of the heathen unto his yoke to serve him. And he shall be a righteous king taught of God, for he shall rule all the earth by the word of his mouth forever. And last, though not least, hear Ezra, the second Moses, in his visions of the night, and ask him who is the lion with human voice that says to the eagle, which is Rome, Thou hast loved liars, and overthrown the cities of the industrious, and razed their walls, though they did thee no harm. Therefore be gone, that the earth may be refreshed and recover itself, and hope in the justice and piety of him who made her. Whereat the eagle was seen no more. Surely, O my master, the testimony of these should be enough, but the way to the fountain's head is open. Let us go up to it at once. Some wine, Esther, and then the Torah. Dost thou believe the prophets, master? He asked after drinking. I know thou dost, for of such was the faith of all thy kindred. Give me, Esther, the book which hath in it the vision of Isaiah. He took one of the rolls which she had unwrapped for him and read. The people that walked in darkness have seen a great light. They that dwell in the land of the shadow of death, upon them hath the light shined. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder. Of the increase of his government and peace there shall be no end, upon the throne of David, and upon his kingdom, to order it, and to establish it with judgment and with justice from henceforth, even forever. Believest thou the prophets, O my master? Now Esther, the word of the Lord that came to Micah. She gave him the roll he asked. Are y'all good?
Yeah, we're great. We're totally not messaging back and forth with funny faces.
Oh, are we getting... Okay. I'm not showing all that.
You can't put pictures in there.
I'm just hearing chatter in the other room. That's all I'm hearing. Okay.
Yay, fun.
All right. Okay. That's a nice pause. Now let's stop the chatter, please. But thou, he began reading, but thou, Bethlehem Ephrath, though thou be little among the thousands of Judah, yet out of thee shall he come forth unto me that is to be ruler in Israel. This was he, the very child Balthazar saw and worshipped in the cave. Believest thou the prophets, O my master? Give me, Esther, the words of Jeremiah. Are we good? Seem a little chattery today.
We're fine. We are loving the story.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought so.
Okay. Give me, Esther, the words of Jeremiah. Receiving that roll, he read as before, Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that I will raise unto David a righteous branch, and a king shall reign and prosper, and shall execute judgment and justice in the earth. In his days Judah shall be saved, and Israel shall dwell safely. As a king he shall reign, as a king, O my master. Believest thou the prophets? Now, daughter, the roll of the sayings of that son of Judah, in whom there was no blemish. She gave him the book of Daniel. Hear, my master, he said, I saw in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven, and there was given him dominion and glory, and a kingdom that all people, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom that which shall not be destroyed. Believest thou the prophets, O my master? It is enough, I believe, cried Ben-Hur. What then, asked Simonides, if the king come poor, will not my master of his abundance give him help? Help him? To the last shekel and the last breath. But why speak of his coming poor? Give me, Esther, the word of the Lord as it came to Zechariah, said Simonides. She gave him one of the rolls. Hear how the king will enter Jerusalem. Then he read, Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Behold, thy king cometh unto thee with justice and salvation, lowly, and riding upon a donkey, and upon a colt, and the foal of a donkey. Ben-Hur looked away. What see you, O my master? Rome, he said gloomily. Rome and her legions. I have dwelt with them in their camps. I know them. Ah, said Simonides, thou shalt be a master of legions for the king, with millions to choose from. Millions? Cried Ben-Hur. Simonides sat a moment thinking. The question of power should not trouble you, he next said. Ben-Hur looked at him inquiringly. You were seeing the lowly king in the act of coming to his own, Simonides answered, seeing him on the right hand, as it were, and on the left the brassy legions of Caesar, and you were asking, what can he do? It was my very thought. Oh, my master, Simonides continued, you do not know how strong our Israel is. You think of him as a sorrowful old man weeping by the rivers of Babylon. But go up to Jerusalem next Passover, and stand on the Xystus, or in the street of Barter, and see him as he is. The promise of the Lord to father Jacob, coming out of Padan Aram, was a law under which our people have not ceased multiplying, not even in captivity. They grew under foot of the Egyptian. The clench of the Roman has been but wholesome nurture to them. Now they are indeed a nation and a company of nations. Nor that only, my master. In fact, to measure the strength of Israel, which is in fact measuring what the king can do, you shall not bide solely by the rule of natural increase, but add thereto the other, I mean the spread of the faith, which will carry you to the far and near of the whole known earth. Further, the habit is, I know, to think and speak of Jerusalem as Israel, which may be likened to our finding an embroidered shred and holding it up as a magisterial robe of Caesar's. Jerusalem is but a stone of the temple, or the heart in the body. Turn from beholding the legions, strong though they be, and count the hosts of the faithful waiting the old alarm. To your tents, O Israel! Count the many in Persia, children of those who chose not to return with the returning. Count the brethren who swarm the marts of Egypt and farther Africa. Count the Hebrew colonists ecking profit in the west, in Ladonium and the trade courts of Spain. Count the pure of blood and the proselytes in Greece and in the isles of the sea, and over the Pontus, and here in Antioch, and for that matter, those of that city lying accursed in the shadow of the unclean walls of Rome herself. Count the worshippers of the Lord dwelling in tents along the deserts next to us, as well as in the deserts beyond the Nile and in the regions across the Caspian and up in the old lands of Gog and Magog even. Separate those who annually send gifts to the Holy Temple in acknowledgement of God, which, by the way, Caesar actually gave gifts to the Holy Temple, and Pilate gave gifts to the Holy Temple. That's an interesting side note. Separate them that they may be counted also. And when you have done counting, lo, my master, a census of the sword hands that await you, lo, a kingdom ready fashioned for him who is to do judgment and justice in the whole earth, in Rome, not less than in Zion. Have then the answer. What Israel can do, that can the king. The picture was fervently given. Upon Ilderim it operated like the blowing of a trumpet. Oh, that I had back my youth, he cried, starting to his feet. Ben-Hur sat still. The speech, he saw, was an invitation to devote his life and fortune to the mysterious being who was palpably as much the center of a great hope with Simonides as with the devout Egyptian. The idea, as we have seen, was not a new one, but had come to him repeatedly, once while listening to Malach in the Grove of Daphne, afterwards more distinctly while Balthazar was giving his conception of what the kingdom was to be. Still later, in the walk through the old orchard, it had risen almost, if not quite, into a resolve. At such times it had come and gone only an idea, attended with feelings more or less acute. Not so now. A master had it in charge. A master was working it up. Already he had exalted it into a cause brilliant with possibilities and infinitely holy. The effect was as if a door theretofore unseen had suddenly opened, flooding Ben-Hur with light, and admitting him to a service which had been his one perfect dream, a service reaching far into the future and rich with the rewards of duty done and prizes to sweeten and soothe his ambition. One touch more was needed. Let us concede all that you say, O Simonides, said Ben-Hur, that the king will come and his kingdom be as Solomon's. Say also, I am ready to give myself and all I have to him and his cause. Yet more, say that I should do as was God's purpose in the ordering of my life, and in your quick amassment of astonishing fortune. Then what? Shall we proceed like blind men building? Shall we wait till the king comes, or until he sends for me? You have age and experience on your side. Answer. Simonides answered at once. We have no choice, none. This letter, he produced Messala's dispatch as he spoke. This letter is the signal for action. The alliance proposed between Messala and Gratus. We are not strong enough to resist. We have not the influence at Rome, nor the force here. They will kill you if we wait. How merciful they are. Look at me and judge. He shuddered at the terrible recollection. Oh, good, my master, he continued, recovering himself. How strong are you, in purpose, I mean. Ben-Hur did not understand him. I remember how pleasant the world was to me in my youth, Simonides proceeded. Yet, said Ben-Hur, you were capable of a great sacrifice. Yes, for love. Has not life other motives as strong? Simonides shook his head. There is ambition. Ambition is forbidden, a son of Israel. What then, of revenge? The spark dropped upon the inflammable passion. The man's eyes gleamed, his hand shook. He answered quickly, Revenge is a Jew's of right. It is the law. A camel, even a dog, will remember a wrong, cried Ilderim. Directly Simonides picked up a broken thread of his thought. There is a work for the king, which should be done in advance of his coming. We may not doubt that Israel is to be his right hand, but alas, it is a hand of peace, without cunning in war. Of the millions, there is not one trained band, not a captain. The mercenaries of the Herods I do not count, for they are kept to crush us. The condition is as the Roman would have it. His policy has fruited well for his tyranny, but the time of change is at hand, when the shepherd shall put on armor and take to spear and sword, and the feeding flocks be turned to fighting lions. Someone, my son, must have place next the king at his right hand. Who shall it be, if not he who does this work well? Ben-Hur's face flushed at the prospect, though he said, I see. But speak plainly. A deed to be done is one thing. How to do it is another. Simonides sipped the wine Esther brought him and replied, The sheik and thou, my master, shall be principals, each with a part. I will remain here, carrying on as now, and watchful that the spring go not dry. Thou shalt betake thee to Jerusalem, and thence to the wilderness, and begin numbering the fighting men of Israel, and telling them into tens and hundreds, and choosing captains, and training them, and in secret places hoarding arms, for which I shall keep thee supplied. Commencing over in Perea, thou shalt go then to Galilee, whence it is but a step to Jerusalem. In Perea the desert will be at thy back, and Ilderim in reach of thy hand. He will keep the road, so that nothing shall pass without thy knowledge. He will keep thee in many ways. Until the ripening time no one shall know what is here contracted. Mine is but a servant's part. I have spoken to Ilderim. What sayest thou? Ben-Hur looked at the sheik. It is as he said, son of Hur, the Arab responded. I have given my word, and he is content with it. But thou shalt have my oath, binding me, and the ready hands of my tribe, and whatever serviceable thing I have. The three, Simonides, Ilderim, Esther, gazed at Ben-Hur fixedly. Every man, he answered, at first sadly, has a cup of pleasure poured for him, and soon or late it comes to his hand, and he tastes and drinks. Every man but me. I see, Simonides, and thou, O great generous sheik, I see whither the proposal tends. If I accept and enter upon the course, farewell peace, and the hopes which cluster around it. The doors I might enter, and the gates of quiet life will shut behind me, never to open again. For Rome keeps them all, and her outlawry will follow me, and her hunters, and in the tombs near cities and the dismal caverns of remotest hills, I must eat my crust and take my rest. The speech was broken by a sob. All turned to Esther, who hid her face upon her father's shoulder. I did not think of you, Esther, said Simonides gently, for he was himself deeply moved. It is well enough, Simonides, said Ben-Hur. A man bears a hard doom better, knowing there is pity for him. Let me go on. They gave ear to him again. I was about to say, he continued, I have no choice, but take the part you assign me, and as remaining here is to meet an ignoble death, I will to the work at once. Shall we have writings? Asked Simonides, moved by his habit of business. I rest upon your word, said Ben-Hur. And I, Ilderim answered. Thus simply was effected the treaty which was to alter Ben-Hur's life. And almost immediately the latter added, It is done then. May the God of Abraham help us, Simonides exclaimed. One word now, my friends, Ben-Hur said more cheerfully. By your leave, I will be my own until after the games. It is not probable Messala will set peril on foot for me until he has given the procurator time to answer him, and that cannot be in less than 7 days from the dispatch of his letter. The meeting him in the circus is a pleasure I would buy at whatever risk. Ilderim, well pleased, assented readily, and Simonides, intent on business, added, "It is well for you, for look you, my master, the delay will give me time to do you a good part. I understood you to speak of an inheritance derived from Arius. Is it in property? A villa near Mycenium, and houses in Rome. I suggest, then, the sale of the property and safe deposit of the proceeds. Give me an account of it, and I will have authorities drawn, and dispatch an agent on the mission forthwith. We will forestall the imperial robbers, at least this once. You shall have the account tomorrow. Then, if there be nothing more, the work of the night is done," said Simonides. Ilderim combed his beard complacently, saying, "And well done. The bread and wine again, Esther. Sheik Ilderim will make us happy by staying with us till tomorrow, or at his pleasure, and thou, my master." "Let the horses be brought," said Ben-Hur. "I will return to the orchard. The enemy will not discover me if I go now, and," he glanced at Ilderim, "the four will be glad to see me." As the day dawned, he and Malak dismounted at the door of the tent. Chapter 9 is called Esther and Ben-Hur. I think we should go ahead and go for it.
Wait.
Yes, JJ? I heard a wait.
Hi. I recorded. And I want to do my head a little now.
Why don't you do it during the intro tomorrow? Is that good?
Okay.
So we all can wait and anticipate
Okay, sorry.
the intro tomorrow, in which JJ will play Mary Had a Little Lamb.
I can do it with one hand.
Yay. All right. So, but right now we're going to read chapter 9. Esther and Ben-Hur. And I need you to sit down and be quiet. Just one more chapter tonight, okay? These are long chapters for JJ. It's hard to focus. Chapter 9, Esther and Ben-Hur. Next night, about the 4th hour, Ben-Hur stood on the terrace of the great warehouse with Esther. Below them on the landing there was much running about and shifting of packages and boxes and shouting of men whose figures, stooping, heaving, hauling, looked in the light of the crackling torches kindled in their aid like the laboring genii of the fantastic Eastern tales. A galley was being laden for instant departure. Simonides had not yet come from his office, in which, at the last moment, he would deliver to the captain of the vessel instructions to proceed without stop to Ostia, the seaport of Rome, and after landing a passenger there, continue more leisurely to Valentia on the coast of Spain. The passenger is the agent going to dispose of the estate derived from Arius the Duumvir. When the lines of the vessel are cast off, and she is put about, and her voyage begun, Ben-Hur will be committed irrevocably to the work undertaken the night before. If he is disposed to repent the agreement with Ilderim, a little time is allowed him to give notice and break it off. He is master, and has only to say the word. Such may have been the thought at the moment in his mind. He was standing with folded arms, looking upon the scene in the manner of a man debating with himself. Young, handsome, rich, but recently from the patrician circles of Roman society, it is easy to think of the world besetting him with appeals not to give more to onerous duty or ambition attended with outlawry or danger. We can even imagine the arguments with which he was pressed, the hopelessness of contention with Caesar, the uncertainty veiling everything connected with the king and his coming, the ease, honors, state, purchasable like goods in market, and the strongest of all, the sense newly acquired of home, with friends to make it delightful. Only those who have been wanderers long desolate can know the power there was in the latter appeal. Let us add now the world, always cunning enough of itself, always whispering to the weak, stay, take thine ease, always presenting the sunny side of life. The world was in this instance helped by Ben-Hur's companion. Were you ever at Rome? He asked. No, Esther replied. Would you like to go? I think not. Why? I am afraid of Rome, she answered with a perceptible tremor of the voice. He looked at her then, or rather down upon her, for at his side she appeared little more than a child. In the dim light he could not see her face distinctly, even the form was shadowy. But again he was reminded of Tirzah, and a sudden tenderness fell upon him. Just so the lost sister stood with him on the housetop the calamitous morning of the accident to Gratus. Poor Tirzah! Where was she now? Esther had the benefit of the feeling evoked. If not his sister, he could never look upon her as his servant, and that she was his servant, in fact, would make him always the more considerate and gentle towards her. I cannot think of Rome, she continued, recovering her voice, and speaking in her quiet, womanly way. I cannot think of Rome as a city of palaces and temples, and crowded with people. She is to me a monster which has possession of one of the beautiful lands, and lies there luring men to ruin and death. A monster which is not possible to resist. A ravenous beast gorging with blood. Why, she faltered, looking down, and stopped. Go on, said Ben-Hur reassuringly. She drew closer to him, looked up again, and said, Why must you make her your enemy? Why not rather make peace with her and be at rest? You have had many ills and borne them. You have survived the snares laid for you by foes. Sorrow has consumed your youth. It is well to give it the remainder of your days. The girlish face under his eyes seemed to come nearer and get whiter as the pleading went on. He stooped towards it and asked softly, What would you have me do, Esther? She hesitated a moment, then asked in return, Is the property near Rome a residence? Yes. And pretty? It is beautiful. A palace in the midst of gardens and shell-strewn walks, fountains without and within, statuary in the shady nooks, hills around covered with vines, and so high that Neapolis and Vesuvius are in sight, and the sea in an expanse of purpling blue, dotted with restless sails. Caesar has a country seat nearby, but in Rome they say the old Arrian villa is the prettiest. And the life there, is it quiet? There was never a summer day, never a moonlit night more quiet, save when visitors come. Now that the old owner is gone, and I am here, there is nothing to break its silence, nothing unless it be the whispering of servants, or the whistling of happy birds, or the noise of fountains at play. It is changeless, except as day by day old flowers fade and fall, the new ones bud and bloom, and the sunlight gives place to the shadow of a passing cloud. The life, Esther, was all too quiet for me. It made me restless by keeping always present a feeling that I, who have so much to do, was dropping into idle habits and tying myself with silken chains, and after a while, and not a long while either, would end with nothing done. She looked off over the river. Why did you ask? He said. Good my master. No, Esther, not that. Call me friend, brother, if you will. I am not your master, and will not be. Call me brother. He could not see the flush of pleasure which reddened her face, and the glow of the eyes that went out lost in the void above the river. I cannot understand, she said, the nature which prefers the life you are going to, a life of violence. And it may be of blood, he said, completing the sentence. Yes, she added, the nature which could prefer that life to such as might be in the beautiful villa. Esther, you mistake. There is no preference, alas. The Roman is not so kind. I am going of necessity. To stay here is to die, and if I go there, the end will be the same, a poisoned cup, a bravo's blow, or a judge's sentence obtained by perjury. Messala and the procurator Gratus are rich with plunder of my father's estate, and it is more important to them to keep their gains now than was their getting in the first instance. A peaceable settlement is out of reach because of the confession it would imply. And then, Esther, if I could buy them, I do not know that I would. I do not believe peace possible to me, no, not even in the sleepy shade and sweet air of the marble porches of the old villa, no matter who might be there to help me bear the burdens of the days, nor by what patience of love she made the effort. Peace is not possible to me while my people are lost, for I must be watchful to find them. If I find them, and they have suffered wrong, shall not the guilty suffer for it? If they are dead by violence, shall the murderers escape? Oh, I could not sleep for dreams, nor could the holiest love by any stratagem lull me to a rest which conscience would not strangle. Is it so bad then? She asked, her voice tremulous with feeling. Can nothing be done? Ben-Hur took her hand. Do you care so much for me? Yes, she answered simply. The hand was warm, and in the palm of his it was lost. He felt it tremble. Then the Egyptian came, so the opposite of his little one, so tall, so audacious, with a flattery so cunning, a wit so ready, a beauty so wonderful, a manner so bewitching. He carried the hand to his lips and gave it back. You shall be another Tirzah to me, Esther. Who is Tirzah? The little sister the Romans stole from me, and whom I must find before I can rest or be happy. Just then a gleam of light flashed athwart the terrace and fell upon the two, and looking round they saw a servant roll Simonides in his chair out of the door. They went to the merchant, and in the after-talk he was the principal. Immediately the lines of the galley were cast off, and she swung round, and midst the flashing of torches and the shouting of joyous sailors hurried off to sea, leaving Ben-Hur committed to the cause of the king who was to come. Chapter 10, posted for the race. The first word is "the," and we will read that chapter tomorrow, hopefully with less chatter in the other room. So, alrighty. So, we either have JJ falling asleep or chattering his ears off. So,
Our ears.
all right, so I hope you're enjoying the story, Ben-Hur. The plot thickens. Now it's not just a revenge plot. It's also a freedom of the Jews, because of all the prophets from the Old Testament that said that the King of the Jews is coming from Bethlehem, and somebody that looks remarkably like this king that Balthazar found. So it looks very much like, they could overthrow Rome here. So we're talking some pretty serious stakes. Let me know what you think in the comments. I mean, obviously we know the historical reality, so we don't need to go into that. All right. So God bless you. Have a great night. We'll see you.